Hello everyone, you're watching the channel Stories of Our Life. Friends, make yourselves comfortable. I wish you to truly enjoy listening to this life story.
Yesterday everything was as usual, but in the morning Hazel woke up in a bad mood. She didn't dream anything, nothing happened the day before, but suddenly, for no reason, she remembered Russell. It had been almost 23 years since they divorced, but sometimes memories of her first husband would come rushing back, disrupting her stable and fairly good life. Today was one of those days. The first thing Hazel unleashed her anger on was her beloved cat. "Get out of here." Hazel grabbed a towel, and the cat, ears flattened, quickly jumped off the kitchen table and ran into the hallway. "If I see you on the table again, you'll regret it," she shouted after it. "Mom, why are you shouting so early?" Sheila asked, yawning and stretching. "Why are you still in your pajamas? You spend time on the computer until late at night and then rush to get ready in the mornings. And, by the way, quit the habit of having breakfast in your pajamas," Hazel grumbled. "Mom, did you wake up in a bad mood?" Sheila approached the coffee machine, but Hazel didn't let her make coffee. "I told you to get dressed first and then come to have breakfast. You're already 20 years old, but I still have to teach you everything." Russell was Hazel's first and only love. Seeing him for the first time at her school friend's birthday party, she immediately knew he was the one destined for her. And Russell also noticed the petite brunette with green eyes right away. They didn't part ways after that birthday. There was a lot of romance, joint outings to various places, trips. And they didn't rush into marriage, they got married only after 2 years. The lovebirds did everything together, never argued, and understood each other without words. How she loved him. Hazel sighed heavily, poured herself a third cup of coffee, and walked to the window. "The weather is just like my mood," she said, looking at the drizzling rain, and flinched when she heard the phone ring. "No peace in the morning, can't do anything without me," she muttered, seeing that it was the accountant calling. "Mrs. Hazel, we received a new invoice. Should I pay it today or after the change of ownership?" the accountant in Kenneth's cosmetic company asked. "What do you think?" Hazel raised her voice unacceptably high. "And I don't understand why the change of ownership hasn't happened yet. I'll come over soon and sort it out." She hung up and carelessly tossed the phone on the table. In her husband's company, Hazel was listed as his deputy, but he handled most of the work. Only when Kenneth went on a business trip did Hazel take his place. Fortunately, those trips lasted no more than 4 days, because she didn't enjoy the industry at all. Hazel was a creative person and loved sewing, which she sometimes did at home after creating sketches of models. Once, she made a living from it and had many clients, but after marrying Kenneth, the need to earn a living that way disappeared. Kenneth was her stroke of luck, but she never loved her second husband. She appreciated and respected him, allowing him to love her, but she didn't love him. Kenneth was completely different from Russell. He was used to making all the decisions himself, had an explosive temper, was pragmatic, disliked sentimentality, and was far from being romantic. But with him, Hazel felt safe and unburdened by problems. And most of all, she was grateful to her current husband for Sheila. The couple had to go through numerous medical examinations for their daughter to be born, not to mention the amount of money spent and the difficulties of pregnancy. But her husband was there, supporting her, taking care of her, not allowing her to give in to despair, and believing that their child would come into the world. How long Hazel had tried to become a mother. And how cruelly that one person, whom she loved so deeply and trusted unconditionally, had treated her. Years had passed, but she hadn't forgotten how Russell had treated her, and her pain hadn't subsided. Love had turned into hatred. 3 miscarriages in a row, tears, hysterics, and even a lack of desire to live. "Hazel, everything will be fine. Please, calm down," Russell said as he picked up Hazel from the hospital after the 3rd miscarriage. "It won't," she said, staring into space and wiping away the tears from her cheeks. "Russell, nothing will be fine without money." "It will be. The doctor said there's a chance to carry a child," Russell replied. We have a mortgage, loans, and our incomes are small. You know we don't have any spare money at all. Are you suggesting we take out another loan? We won't be able to pay it back. And so what? Are we never going to have children now because you can't earn enough money? Hazel couldn't hold back. She felt so terrible that she blamed the whole world for her troubles. Hazel, don't get worked up. I'll earn it. We'll figure something out. Just calm down. The man embraced her and kissed her temple. Forgive me, Russell, forgive me, she sobbed and clung to her husband, berating herself for saying hurtful words. Russell found a second job, took out a new loan, paid for all the necessary medical expenses, and the hospital where Hazel spent more time than at home during her fourth pregnancy. Hazel was already 3 months pregnant when something happened that shattered her life. After leaving the hospital once again, she lay on the bed at home and watched a movie when Russell returned from work. She immediately sensed that something was wrong with her husband. In fact, she had noticed several times before that something was happening with him. "How are you feeling?" he asked and kissed her forehead. He seemed distant, preoccupied, his thoughts somewhere else or with someone else. That's exactly what Hazel thought and felt that day. Fine. But what's wrong with you? Something happened? Hazel became worried. You shouldn't get nervous. Everything is fine, he replied, avoiding eye contact with his wife. I can see that it's not. Russell, I'm already getting nervous. Tell me what happened. Her husband looked at her, and by the guilty look in his eyes, she understood everything without words. Russell, her heart stopped in her chest, and she felt a lack of air. Hazel, bye. I'm sorry. I've fallen in love with someone else. And she's also expecting my child. I found out today, he said and sighed heavily. What? She whispered, barely audible, feeling her body tremble. Hazel, I didn't want to tell you about this right now. Please, let's just stay calm. I will never abandon our child, and I will always help you. But Hazel didn't hear him anymore. In that moment, it felt like her life had ended. That same evening, she lost this baby as well, and she never saw Russell again, kicking him out of the apartment and out of her life forever. Then came the court, the divorce, the division of property, but the lawyers handled all of that. She didn't answer her ex-husband's calls, and when she once visited that friend's house where she had met Russell, and saw him there without saying a word, proudly holding his head high, she left without even undressing. Of course, her friend called, apologized, and told her that Russell had met his new fling at his second job, but Hazel was no longer interested in any of it. She crossed her friend and her family out of her life as well, not wanting to have anything to do with the betrayer. By evening, her mood had improved. Her beloved cat welcomed her at home. With its tail held high, it rubbed against its owner's legs and purred. Sucking up to me, the woman picked up the creature and held it close to her chest. But you can't walk on the tables. How long can I chase you, you mischievous creature? She pressed her cheek against her pet's wet nose and then put it down on the floor, proceeding to unfasten her boots. Sheila, are you home? She called out, but there was no response. Hazel walked into the kitchen and started unpacking the grocery bags. Then she decided to call her daughter, but before she could do that, Sheila came home. Why are you so late today? Hazel asked her daughter. Well, Ralph and I decided to go to the movies after classes, she replied and opened the refrigerator. Mom, is there anything to eat? I just got home. I thought you would come back earlier and prepare dinner. Wait. I'll quickly make something. And by the way, when are you going to introduce us to your dad and me with your Ralph? Well, I don't know yet. He's afraid of you, Sheila answered. We're not that scary. Why would he be afraid of us? Well, you guys are cool, and he's from a regular family. They don't even have a car. That's why he didn't take you out to a cafe after the movie? We do go to cafes sometimes. Ralph works as a courier in his free time. And today, we just didn't go anywhere because he had to work right after. I see. And what are your plans? Is it serious between you two, or just a casual relationship? Hazel asked. She wasn't thrilled about her daughter's suitor, although she didn't know him. We're just dating for now, and we're happy together. We'll finish our studies, and then we'll think about getting married. So, you plan to get married? Then even more so, your dad and I need to meet him. Of course, we plan to. But first, we need to get an education and find jobs, and then everything else. Well, if you understand that. All right, invite him over this weekend. Your dad will be back by then, and we can all sit down and talk. Okay. Just promise me that you and Dad will behave normally, and not bombard him with a bunch of questions. Sheila smiled at her mother and picked up the cat, which was rubbing against her legs. You're my fluffy cat. Were you scolded today? We scolded him for a reason. What do you think? Do your dad and I seem completely crazy? We won't eat your Ralph. If he has serious intentions, he should have introduced himself to you a long time ago, Hazel replied, stirring the macaroni. He wants to meet you guys, he's just really afraid that you won't like him, Sheila said, scratching the cat behind its ear. On Saturday, let him come. We'll see if we like him or not. It's not about marrying him ourselves, of course, but when you have life experience, you see through people. And at 20, you still have rose-colored glasses on. Mom, did you fall in love with Dad at first sight or did it happen over time? Sheila suddenly asked. It happened over time. But with Ralph and me, it was love at first sight. As soon as we saw each other, we just knew we were in love. We want to be together and believe it's forever. Forever? Oh, Sheila. I thought the same way once, at first sight, thinking it would last forever. But it turned out I was very wrong. Are you talking about your first husband? Yes. But let's change the subject. I don't want to talk about that scoundrel. He's not worth it. Your dad called today, saying he's tired. He suggests that we all go to the seaside together soon. But I have classes. Well, missing a couple of weeks won't be the end of the world. You're an excellent student, you'll quickly catch up on everything later. Okay, I can do that. It's a good idea. Although I would like Ralph to come too. We haven't gone anywhere together yet. If he's a poor guy, I doubt it will work out, Hazel replied. Mom. Sheila pouted, feeling offended. Okay, I'm silent now. Let him come with us, but at his own expense. Get a plate, the macaroni with sausages is ready, Hazel said. Macaroni with sausages. Sheila took a plate and sighed. Well, tomorrow, when you come back from college early, you can cook something more sophisticated. Saturday. Hazel gave the suitor of her daughter an assessing look and forced a smile. I'm glad to finally meet you, she said, not understanding what her daughter saw in him. Externally, he was attractive, of course, but somewhat nondescript. There was no manly presence about him. Guys like him usually don't achieve much in life. Hello? I'm also very glad, he mumbled, offering a cake. Sheila, show the guest to the living room while I finish up in the kitchen, Hazel addressed her daughter. Sure. Ralph, take off your coat and come this way. Mom, where's Dad? Sheila asked. Well, he had some things to take care of, but he should be here soon. Sheila led her fiancé into the living room. Don't worry. My parents are normal, she told him, wrapping her arms around his torso and planting a kiss on his lips. I feel like your mom didn't like me right away, he smiled sadly, pulling the girl closer. I'll try to make a good impression. I don't want your parents to be against me. Everything will be fine. They will definitely like you, Sheila replied, resting her head on his shoulder. Kenneth diffused the somewhat tense atmosphere at the table, immediately noticing that his wife was not thrilled with their daughter's boyfriend. Dinner went well. No one bombarded Ralph with unnecessary questions, and Sheila was content. You see, everything is fine. So, what do you think of my parents? Sheila asked her fiancé as she walked him to the elevator. You have great parents. Maybe we can meet mine next Saturday, he asked, embracing Sheila. Let's do it, she said, smiling. I love you, Ralph said and gently kissed the girl on the lips when the elevator arrived. I love you too, she replied. He's a decent guy, Kenneth said when he and Hazel were alone. What didn't you like about him? Where did you get the idea that I didn't like him? She asked, rinsing the dishes. I saw how you scrutinized him with your gaze. He's just nothing special. Reminded me of my ex. And how so? It doesn't matter. If Sheila likes him, it's her business. We don't know what will happen after they finish their studies. It's not certain that they will even make it to the wedding. Well, he's already finishing his studies. You know, he seemed decent to me. And it was clear that he was nervous, so he's serious about our Sheila. He's an excellent student and works part-time. Sheila really wants him to come with us to the seaside. I was actually thinking of looking at vacation packages today, and I'll get one for him too, Kenneth said, but Hazel turned sharply and looked at her husband with a disapproving glance. Kenneth, what are you thinking? Let him get his own vacation package if he wants to come with us, she replied. Where would he get the money for that? So you've already decided to take care of him? Don't get worked up. I'm not planning to support him, but I'll get a vacation package. If you get a vacation package for him, then I'm not going anywhere with you. Hazel threw the kitchen towel she was using to dry the dishes on the table and went to their bedroom, wearing a displeased expression. Can you believe he came up with that? You've seen this groom, who is here today, but tomorrow he might not be. No vacation packages on their account, period. Kenneth followed his wife into the bedroom. What was that all about? Nothing. It's just very foolish to spend so much money on someone we don't even know, she replied, making it clear to her husband with her entire demeanor how much she disliked his idea. I'm not giving away my last shirt. And our Sheila clearly loves him, he said. Kenneth, you don't have to be so generous right away with someone we barely know. I'm categorically against you paying for his vacation package. I don't even want him to come with us, but if he buys his own, I'll endure his presence for Sheila's sake. And when they get married, will you still endure him? You're making a fuss out of nothing, mother, Kenneth sighed and hugged his wife. All right, I won't buy it. Really? Hazel looked intently at her husband. Really? Don't get so worked up, the man kissed his wife on the temple. Just don't do it secretly behind my back. He's definitely not capable of paying for a vacation package himself. Well, we don't know about his capabilities, and I won't do anything behind your back. Hazel smiled and rested her head on her husband's shoulder. I'm feeling tired today. Shall we go to sleep? She asked and yawned. I'm tired too. Let's sleep, and tomorrow we'll figure out where to go on our trip. Hazel breathed a sigh of relief. They didn't need that fiancé on their vacation. The next day, the young couple met again. Mom wants to go to Cuba, and Dad wants to go to the Dominican Republic. We had debates all day yesterday, Sheila said when they left the institute together with Ralph. And where do you want to go? He asked. I've been to many places. I don't really mind where to go for a vacation. I feel good anywhere. But if my vote matters, I'll support Mom. Ralph, would you be able to come with us? Sheila, I don't know. I would really like to. But maybe later? We have a little more studying to do, and then I'll find a job right away, and we can go together wherever you want, he replied. Okay, Sheila sighed. She understood very well that it wouldn't be easy for him to come up with that amount of money right now. Sheila dropped off Ralph at his workplace and then headed home. Hello, Mom, she kissed her mother on the cheek and sat down next to her on the couch. What are you watching? Some nonsense. There's really nothing worth watching. Hazel put down the remote and looked at her daughter. We're going to Venezuela. Is Ralph planning to come with us? That's unexpected. You wanted to go to Cuba, and Dad to the Dominican Republic. Sheila was surprised. Well, that's how it turned out. Neither you nor I got what we wanted. We found a neutral option, Hazel replied. And how much does it cost? Well, we were looking at decent hotels, so it's $150 each. Can your poor guy afford it? Mom, if you keep calling him that, I'll stop talking to you, Sheila frowned. Well, I don't like him, Sheila, that's all. I have a feeling that nothing good awaits you with him, Hazel admitted. You've only seen him once and already drawn conclusions. Ralph is calm, romantic, and he loves me, Sheila said. I knew one such calm and romantic person. Hazel replied. Are you talking about my first husband again? Mom, not everyone is like that. He's the same type. It's unclear what lies in his character. But Dad liked Ralph. He's not a woman and doesn't see what I see. And what did you see? He doesn't inspire trust. You never answered, is he coming with us or not? No, Sheila replied, slightly disappointed. As expected. I'm glad, Hazel replied. Saturday. Sheila was just as nervous as Ralph when they arrived at his home. You'll impress my parents, don't worry, Ralph said before opening the door to the apartment. Mom, Dad, Ralph brought his fiancée, the young girl shouted, greeting the guests in the hallway. And this is Mary, Ralph said. Sheila knew that Ralph had a younger sister but saw her for the first time today. Your manners certainly shine, he glanced disapprovingly at his sister. His parents emerged into the hallway, wearing smiles on their faces. Hello, Sheila, the mother greeted. Mary, go bring the glasses for now, Ralph's father said to his daughter, carefully studying Sheila, who bore a striking resemblance to his first wife. The resemblance struck him. A smile faded from Russell's lips. He greeted his son and his girlfriend in a restrained manner, then followed his daughter. Russell was almost silent at the table, absent-mindedly poking at his plate with his fork, lost in his own thoughts. His wife chatted incessantly, periodically casting displeased glances at her husband. I think I didn't make a good impression on your dad, Sheila said when Ralph came back downstairs to see her off. The taxi was supposed to arrive in 5 minutes, so they had a little time to discuss the evening. Yeah, he has some issues at work, that's probably why he was preoccupied. Don't pay attention to it, Ralph replied, looking up towards the windows and then smiled, noticing that his whole family was watching them. It was particularly amusing how they quickly disappeared, pulling the curtain when they realized Ralph saw them. He just looked at me strangely, Sheila said. Don't worry. I'll ask him what was going on with him today, Ralph reassured her. Oh, the taxi has arrived, Sheila said, spotting the car pulling up from the archway, and kissed Ralph on the lips. See you tomorrow, he said. See you tomorrow, Sheila replied, getting into the taxi. As he watched the car with his gaze, Ralph headed home. He wanted to talk to his father because he himself noticed that his father was indeed giving Sheila some odd looks. Russell sat in the kitchen, lost in his past memories and thoughts about his son's fiancée. Is the world really that small? He wondered. So Hazel was able to have a child after all. What will happen if she finds out whose son is dating her daughter? Or maybe this girl is not her daughter after all? But the resemblance is striking. Dad, why did you have a sour face throughout dinner tonight? Russell asked his father when he returned home. Didn't you like Sheila? Do you know who her parents are? Russell asked, wanting to confirm his suspicions. I do. So what? Russell replied. And do you know her mother's name? Mrs. Hazel. Why are you asking? Russell paled. It would be better for you to break up with Sheila, he replied. What? Why should I break up with Sheila? Russell looked at his father with bewilderment. The thing is, her mother is my first wife, Russell confessed. Sheila bears a strong resemblance to her, and that's why I wondered if she could be Hazel's daughter. And it turned out to be true. If that's the case, should Sheila and I break up because of it? Ralph asked. When her mother finds out that you're my son, she'll do everything to make you two break up. You won't have a future with this girl, Russell replied. What does it matter what happened in the past? We didn't get along, we divorced. Many years have passed. Sheila and I have nothing to do with it, Ralph argued. We had a very bad breakup, Russell said. Listen, Dad, Mrs. Hazel has a husband, by the way, a great guy. She has a good and happy life. A fantastic apartment, they're even going to Venezuela soon. She has long forgotten who you are, and surely forgave whatever you did many years ago, Ralph explained. I don't think so. What I did is unforgivable, Russell sighed, resting his palms on his face. But I still don't think we should give up on our future together because of your old grievances. I love her. Very much, Ralph insisted. Love is a fickle thing. It's here today and gone tomorrow. I once loved her mother deeply too. We struggled to have a child. Hazel had repeated miscarriages, which made her anxious and prone to occasional fits and tears. It exhausted me. I worked 2 jobs to pay for her medical treatments and hospital stays. She stayed home from the beginning of the 4th pregnancy, in and out of the hospital. And I worked hard on 2 jobs, feeling like a servant at home. Then I met your mother. She was cheerful, easygoing, no tensions, no tears. And it so happened that Hazel got pregnant, and your mother told me she was expecting you. I felt like the worst person, but I didn't want to be with my wife anymore. I had fallen deeply in love with your mother. Hazel was afraid to admit the truth. She wanted peace, without any emotional upheaval. And when I came home and saw her lying on the couch, I wanted to cry, Russell revealed. Hazel doesn't have any children besides Sheila. So, she lost that child too? Ralph asked. Yes. She noticed that I was acting strange, so I had to confess. I couldn't lie anymore. Hazel found out about my other child and had a miscarriage on the same day. After that, we never saw each other again. She didn't want any contact with me. Lawyers took care of the divorce and property division, Russell explained. So, she hates you, Ralph said pensively. It's more than just hate. I know her character. She will never allow her daughter to marry my son. Think about how you and Sheila would live if I have such a past with her mother, Russell warned. I don't know, Ralph rested his hand against his forehead. That's why I'm saying it won't work out, Russell concluded. Maybe she doesn't hold a grudge against you anymore? It's been a long time. She had a child, got married. And perhaps, it's just a coincidence, and this isn't the same Mrs. Hazel? Ralph suggested. I don't think so. Do you have a photo of her? Russell asked. I'll show you now. Sheila has it on her social media, Ralph said, taking out his phone and scrolling through the photos on his girlfriend's page. Here, take a look. He handed the phone to his father, who looked at it with guilty eyes. Yes, that's her, Russell confirmed. So, how did you like his parents? Hazel asked her daughter when she returned home. They're fine, Sheila replied. You never told me what they do for a living. Dad works as an electrician, and Mom works in a housing agency. Well. Hazel involuntarily remembered Russell because he also worked as an electrician. Mom, please, let's not go there, Sheila quickly interjected. Could you at least show me a photo of them? I'd like to see our future relatives since we'll have to babysit their grandchildren together if you get married, Hazel said. I'll show you if you promise not to make any unpleasant comments, Sheila replied. Come on, show me already. Are you planning to introduce us? Of course, Sheila said, searching her phone for a photo of her entire family. Here, look, she handed her mother the phone. Hazel paled, her eyes widened, and she covered her mouth with her hand. Mom, what's wrong? Sheila asked anxiously, noticing her reaction. Sheila, it's that scoundrel, my first husband, Hazel replied, clutching her chest. Mom, are you feeling okay? What should I get you? Sheila worriedly inquired. Water and look for my medication in the first aid kit. Hazel put down the phone and leaned against the back of the sofa. Her heart was aching, her breathing became rapid, and she felt a lack of oxygen. Sheila quickly returned to the room with the medicine and water. Mom, should I call a doctor? Sheila asked, helping her mother lie down on the sofa after she took the medication. No need. It will pass, Hazel replied, but Sheila still called for an ambulance. It was a bout of tachycardia, the paramedic said after examining Hazel and handing Sheila a list of medications. Rest is essential, and no stress, he added before leaving. Sheila called her father, who dropped everything and hurried home. Mommy, just try not to worry. Dad will be here soon. I told him to buy the medications from the pharmacy. Sheila sat down next to her mother and began stroking her shoulder. Sheila, you have to promise me that you'll break up with Ralph, Hazel said, looking at her daughter. Mom, let's not discuss this right now. You mustn't get worked up. Sheila didn't want to dwell on the fact that Ralph's father was her mother's ex-husband, whom she despised with every fiber of her being. Her sole concern was her mother's health. You can't be with him. I will never accept such a son-in-law or be connected to his family, Hazel insisted. Mom, please, not now. Remember what the doctor said about avoiding stress, Sheila pleaded. Hazel closed her eyes and let out a heavy sigh. After a while, she fell asleep. Sheila, caring for her mother, covered her with a blanket and went to her room to talk to Ralph. Hi, his voice sounded somber. Hi. We need to talk, Sheila said. It's late. Maybe tomorrow? Is something wrong with you? Ralph asked. My mom had a bout of tachycardia. Ralph, your father. He's my mom's ex-husband. Sheila didn't beat around the bush. I know, Ralph replied. That's why he was so gloomy today, because you resemble my mom, and he suspected you were her daughter. Then I showed him the photos, and it turned out to be true. My dad will be here soon. Shall I come over, and we can talk in the car? Sheila suggested. Why don't I come instead? By the time I reach you, your dad will be back, Ralph proposed. It's cold outside today. It's better if I come, Sheila insisted. All right then. I'll be waiting, Ralph agreed. Ralph was contemplative and gloomy. What's wrong with you? His mother asked when she entered the kitchen to get some water. First, your dad's in a bad mood, and now you. What happened? Nothing. Everything's fine, Ralph said and went to his parents' room, where his father was sitting in front of the computer, trying to distract himself from the past that had unexpectedly resurfaced today. Mrs. Hazel found out that I'm your son. She had a bout of tachycardia, Ralph told his father, who paled once again. You see, Ralph, it's better for you to break up with Sheila now, his father advised. I don't want to break up with her, Ralph replied. It would be better for everyone, his father insisted. Suddenly, Ralph's mother entered the room and scrutinized her husband and son closely. What are you whispering about? She asked. Oh, just some nonsense, Mom, Ralph replied and walked away. It was such a twist of fate that Sheila turned out to be the daughter of the woman who had caused his father so much pain. And as soon as this woman found out that Ralph was her son, her heart started acting up. Ralph got into the car with Sheila. He had a somber and gloomy look. How is your mom? He asked, looking at her with guilty eyes, even though he wasn't at fault for any of this, neither towards her nor her mother. When I left, she was still asleep. My dad arrived. Ralph, she hates your father, Sheila replied, sadly gazing at her beloved. That's not surprising. He told me everything, Ralph said. My mom asked me to promise her that we would break up, Sheila said. Did you promise? Ralph felt a lump forming in his throat, and a cold wave washed over him. No, I told her that we would talk about it later and that she shouldn't get upset now. Ralph, she will never accept her first husband's son. I don't know what to do. Sheila covered her face with her hands and burst into tears. Ralph immediately embraced her. Sheila, this has nothing to do with us. Neither I nor you are responsible for what happened between them in the past. After all, they can avoid each other, Ralph comforted her. But how can they avoid each other? What if there's a wedding, then children? They can't just avoid each other, Sheila sniffled in response. I'm not defending my father, what he did to your mom was terrible, of course. But neither my mom nor I are at fault, Ralph explained. You're not. But your mom knew that he had a wife. Sheila said, her voice trembling. Stop. Sheila, let's please not blame my mom, Ralph pushed Sheila away and furrowed his brows even more deeply. I'm just stating the facts. My mom's hatred towards your parents can be understood. They caused her to lose a child she desperately wanted. Sheila took out a tissue and wiped away her tears. Are you going to hate them too now? Ralph asked. What would you do in my place? Sheila sighed. Probably not the best way, I suppose. He suddenly realized that maybe he and Sheila would have to break up, even though he didn't want to. Ralph immediately dismissed those thoughts, scolding himself for even entertaining them. Why did it have to be this way, that you're his son? Sheila sighed. Regardless, I love my parents, and I will always love them. Sheila, let's not argue and make hasty decisions. Maybe our parents can let go of the past for our sake. Maybe your mom can forgive my dad? It's been so many years. Besides, her life is good. She has everything she needs. A good husband, a daughter, and prosperity, Ralph said. Oh, I don't know, Ralph. I'm even scared to go back home. My mom will wake up and we'll have an unpleasant conversation, Sheila replied. Maybe I can try talking to her? Maybe I can convince her that I'm serious and truly love you, Ralph suggested. She won't want to talk. She won't even let you near the doorstep. I don't know what to do, Sheila sighed heavily and looked out of the car window. Fine drizzle fell and gusts of wind played with the tree branches, stripping them of their red and yellow leaves. For now, we don't need to do anything. Let's leave everything as it is and decide later, Ralph hugged Sheila once again. When Sheila returned home, Hazel was already awake. She had heard part of the conversation between her parents. It was not surprising that they were talking about her fiancé and his family. Where have you been? Hazel cast a very displeased look at her daughter when she entered the living room. Did you rush off to that bastard again? Hazel, calm down. You shouldn't get upset. Relax, Kenneth said, stroking his wife's hand that he held in his palm. No, Kenneth. I can't calm down. That spawn of his won't be related to us until I'm dead, she replied to her husband and looked at her daughter again. Sheila, try to understand me and imagine how I feel. His mistress was pregnant with this Ralph at that time, and when I found out, I lost my long-awaited baby. This whole family killed my child. It's scary for me to even remember what I felt back then. I didn't want to live. You'll meet a normal guy from a good family. After all, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Mom, I understand everything, but I love Ralph, Sheila replied, barely holding back her tears. Do you love me? How can I, with that scumbag, his father, and his once carefree mistress, take care of our common grandchildren? If I see them, I'll spit in both their faces, Hazel sighed heavily and clutched her heart again. That's enough. Sheila, go to your room, Kenneth said and carefully laid his wife on the couch. Hazel, calm down. Everything will be fine. Think about yourself first. I'll bring you a pill now. He left the living room with their daughter. We'll talk about everything later, when Mom falls asleep, he said. Sheila went to her room, where a lazy cat was sprawled on the bed, lifting its head lazily when she opened the door. Sheila lay down next to the cat and buried her nose in its soft belly, contemplating how, in one brief moment, life could be turned upside down. Ralph sat in his room, holding his head in his hands when his father knocked on the door. What? Ralph asked gruffly when his father opened the door. Will you hate me now too? His father asked and sat down next to his son. No, Dad. I just don't know what to do now. Mrs. Hazel hates all of us. Not just you, but Mom and me as well, he said sadly. That's why I told you it would be better to break up with Sheila. There will be no life for you. Besides, there are plenty of good girls around. You'll find someone else and forget about her. You have to understand, I'm not against Sheila, but Hazel. She won't forgive me or accept you. Ralph was very angry now. The more he thought about the situation, the angrier he became at his father. I don't need anyone else. I love Sheila. And you know what, Dad? Maybe you should meet Mrs. Hazel and beg her for forgiveness? Why should Sheila and I suffer because of you? Ralph was furious. He tried to imagine different scenarios in his head, and the more he thought about it, the angrier he got at his father. She won't talk to me, Russell sighed. You should try. Or are you scared? No, I'm not scared. I just know she won't listen to me. I've tried many times after the divorce, wanted them to separate on good terms, but it didn't work out. I'll try, of course, but I can't promise any results. Russell left his son's room and ran into his wife. What are you whispering about all the time? She asked, looking at her husband. Ask Ralph. He waved her off and went to the kitchen. Ralph, what secrets do you and your father have? She asked, entering her son's room. Mom, please tell me, when you started dating Dad, did you know he was married and his wife was expecting a child? He asked, staring intently at his mother. Where are these questions coming from? The woman paled sharply. So did you know, or not? Ralph, it's none of your business, she replied in an annoyed tone. Oh yes, it is. Sheila is his ex-wife's daughter, Ralph answered, not taking his eyes off his mother. Oh. What a small world, she exclaimed and sat in the computer chair. Unfortunately. Is her mother against you? Of course. Who wouldn't be in her place? Ralph replied sarcastically. Since everything turned out this way, it's better for you to break up with Sheila. We won't get along with her family, that's for sure, his mother told him. Sheila couldn't fall asleep. She kept thinking about Ralph and her mother's past, which overshadowed her future with him. When there was a knock on the door, she immediately knew that her father wanted to talk to her. The conversation is inevitable, so there's no point in delaying it until tomorrow, she decided. That's the situation. Kenneth sighed and sat on the bed next to his daughter. What should I do, Dad? Sheila asked, looking at him. What should you do? Just think for yourself, how can we have any contact with his family after everything that happened in the past? And for your Ralph, they will always be his parents, whom he will love no matter what. He won't be able to juggle between them and you for long. Your relationship is doomed in any case, so it's better to end it now. It will be even more painful later. Besides, Ralph's story doesn't end there. You're smart and beautiful, my daughter, and you will find love and a family, Kenneth replied. But Ralph is not at fault for his parents' actions. We love each other. Why should we sacrifice our feelings because of what happened in my mother's and his father's past? Sheila pleaded. You see, you're saying it yourself, his parents' actions. Sheila, you won't be able to have a good relationship with them. And imagine if you and Ralph have a child. He would be their grandchild too. My dear, you're a grown girl and you have to understand everything yourself. You and Ralph don't have a future together. It broke your mother's heart when she found out he was her ex-husband's son. And what will happen to her if you announce that you'll marry him no matter what? Is he more important to you than your own mother? Kenneth reasoned. I just love him. Sheila couldn't hold back her tears any longer and started crying. Kenneth immediately hugged his daughter. Everything will work out. You'll meet another good guy and forget about Ralph. Look, your mother met me, then you were born, and we've been living happily for many years, he comforted her. Ralph lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't figure out what to do in this complicated situation. Sheila would never have a good relationship with his parents, just like her parents. How could they build a family together? His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door, and moments later, his wife was in his son's room. "Can't you sleep?" she asked and sat at the edge of his bed. "No, I can't," he replied, still looking at the ceiling. "Ralph, I knew your father was married. But when I saw him, I fell in love immediately and felt that he was my person. It happens. But I didn't make any moves. He showed interest first, and things started to happen between us. Let me tell you the truth. I didn't know right away that his wife was pregnant, but when I found out, it didn't matter to me because he already loved me. I saw it, I felt it. We were very happy together, and I didn't want to sacrifice our happiness because someone else was expecting a child from the person we had mutual feelings for. Besides, I became pregnant with him myself. We were both pregnant, and he chose me," she explained. "And because of that, his wife lost her child," Ralph remarked. She was to blame herself for her husband falling out of love with her. And if she had approached the situation rationally, she might not have lost her child. She went into hysterics right away. Russell came to me that night with a scratched face. She nearly scratched his eyes out. They took her to the hospital, where she lost the baby. Since that night, she hasn't talked to Russell anymore. He tried many times to reach out to her, to talk, to explain, to end things amicably, but it was all in vain, she shared. "Well, Mom, what's done is done," Ralph said. "Exactly. Break up with Sheila. It's bound to happen, if not now, then a little later. How do you imagine your future life? You'll cut off contact with us, she'll cut off contact with her parents, but you'll be together? You won't be able to be happy together. Can't you find another girl at your age? You still have time to get married and have children. You had a high school love too. You said you would marry her back then. And what happened? It all ended a year after we graduated," his mother advised. "This time it's more serious." "Back then, it was just a childhood crush," Ralph replied. His heart was aching, and he realized that with such a past, he had no future with Sheila. "Well, you'll have other girls, not just one. You haven't been with Sheila for long. You'll forget about her quickly. Soon you'll finish college, then work, and there will be new acquaintances. Later on, you'll look back with a smile and tell yourself that you did the right thing," his mother assured him. "Mom, can you leave me alone?" Ralph looked at his mother. "I want to be alone." Of course, his mother got up from the bed. "Just don't dramatize it too much. Sheila isn't your person," she said and left the room. After a sleepless night, Sheila woke up to a not-so-good morning. "Good morning, Mom. How are you feeling?" Sheila found her mother in the kitchen, along with her father. "Better. But why do your eyes look red? Did you cry all night?" Hazel asked, looking at her daughter and already knowing the answer to her question. "Sheila, we'll be going to Venezuela soon. You'll relax, unwind, and forget about him." "Mom, you shouldn't talk about it now. It will only make you nervous, and God forbid your heart starts acting up again," Sheila said, pouring herself some tea. "But I never stopped being nervous. And my heart didn't stop aching when I found out who you were dating," Hazel replied. "It's not his fault that he has such despicable parents, Mom. He's not at fault. Nobody blames him for having a scumbag for a father and a mother who was a prostitute, seducing a married man. Sheila, I hope you understand that we can't have any connection with that family. Or will you reject us for him?" "Mom, why are you saying such things? How can I reject you?" Sheila sat across from her mother, slowly stirring her tea. "My dear, you'll have to choose. It's either me or him." Hazel stared at her daughter, feeling her heartache again. "Kenneth, please give me the pill," she asked her husband. "Hazel, please, stop tormenting yourself. Or do you want to end up in the hospital instead of going to Venezuela?" Kenneth said, pouring water into a glass for his wife. "Of course, you will, Mommy. Just don't worry anymore. I'll break up with Ralph, Sheila replied and kissed her mother's cheek, then headed back to her room, leaving her untouched tea on the kitchen counter. Locking the door behind her, she collapsed on her bed and burst into tears. She never could have imagined that one day she would have to choose between her mother and her beloved. Ralph spent the entire Sunday in his room, fiddling with his phone. He couldn't bring himself to call Sheila because he didn't know what to say to her. She hadn't called him either. Sheila also couldn't bring herself to call Ralph on Sunday. Their meeting on Monday was inevitable, and she didn't want it to happen. Another sleepless night. Monday morning arrived. Normally, she would pick up Ralph, but today she went to the university alone. For the first time in their entire relationship, they didn't speak the whole day and didn't have a morning phone call. Sheila, why do you look so pale? You have dark circles under your eyes. Are you okay? Her close friend asked when they met at the institute. My mom had a heartache. It was a tough weekend, Sheila replied, not wanting to go into details. Wow. How is she now? Is she feeling better? Her friend asked, paling at the news. Yes. She's much better now. And why did you come alone today? Where is Ralph? It just happened that way, Sheila glanced at her watch. Let's hurry, otherwise, we'll be late. She quickened her pace, and her friend followed closely behind. Sheila never crossed paths with Ralph at the institute. She sat in her car and decided to dial his number. Her hands trembled, her heart pounded harder, but it was foolish to not talk to each other, to hide and postpone the inevitable. Hello, Ralph, she said softly, hearing his voice on the other end of the line. Hey, he replied. Are you still at school? No. We went to grab a snack at the cafe with the guys, but I'm about to leave. Where are you? I'm in my car near the university. Ralph, we need to talk, her voice trembled with excitement, as did her body. I'll come over right now, he replied. It didn't take even 5 minutes for Sheila to see Ralph. He said, goodbye, to his friends and hurried to her car. Hey, he said, settling into the seat next to Sheila. Coldly, distant, without a kiss. How are you? She asked, noticing that he looked away. I'm fine. How's your mom? He asked, finally looking at Sheila. His gaze. It was different, not like usual. Something seemed to have dimmed in his eyes. Indifference? Pain? Resignation? Sheila didn't understand what he was feeling at that moment, but her heart was breaking into pieces, and she struggled to hold back her tears. Ralph, we need to break up, she uttered, looking into his eyes, where something briefly sparkled and immediately faded. You're right. It'll be better for everyone, he replied, forcing a smile. I'll go now, I still have work, he added. Maybe I can give you a ride? Sheila offered. No need. I'll take public transport, it's better, Ralph replied and got out of the car. She watched him as he walked away, and then, leaning her head on the steering wheel, she burst into tears. That was it. It felt as though she had stabbed herself in the heart, but there was no other way. Her parents were right, their relationship was doomed, and it was better to end it now. Time heals. Any pain fades away, including this one. Ralph, gasped his mother when her son appeared at the doorstep, barely able to stand. Where did you get so drunk? Russell. Come here, she called out to her husband. Wow. What a surprise, Russell came out of the room and approached his son from one side, while his wife approached from the other. Taking him by the arms, they managed to bring him to his room and laid him on the bed. He never used to drink, and now he can't even stand, Russell commented. Looks like he broke up with Sheila. It's a lot of stress for the poor guy. It'll pass, his mother replied. It's good that they broke up. I hope he won't start drinking all the time. I'm afraid of that, Russell said. Don't say such things. He'll get over it, his mother approached the bed. Ralph, sweetheart, would you like some water? She asked. Ralph let out a faint groan and turned onto his side, partially opening his eyes. "Leave," he mumbled, clutching a pillow. "Let's go." "We shouldn't disturb him now." Russell tugged his wife's sleeve, and she obediently followed him. The next day. "Sheila, what's going on? Did you have a fight with Ralph or something?" asked her friend when they bumped into each other at the Institute Cafe. Ralph didn't look well, as if a tank had run over him. Sheila and Ralph exchanged a curt hello, and he went to join his friends at a table. "We broke up," Sheila replied. Her friend's eyes widened, and she gasped. "How? Why? Did he cheat on you?" "No, please, let's not have any questions. We broke up, that's it," Sheila replied. "Listen, we were planning to go to a cottage this weekend. There's going to be a party. There will be many guys. Maybe you can come with us? It will help distract you," her friend suggested. "I could use a distraction right now, but it's unlikely to happen." Sheila looked mournfully at the table where Ralph was sitting, and then at her friend. "Let's get out of here. I don't have an appetite. I don't feel like eating either. Let's go. And think about the party. The best remedy after a breakup is a new guy or at least some male attention," her friend said. "I'm not in the mood for guys right now, but I agree. Maybe it will actually help me get distracted," Sheila agreed. "Sitting at home is unbearable." Ralph turned his head and watched his ex-girlfriend leaving the cafe. He wanted to catch up to her, to say, "To hell with it all, let's be together, no matter what." But he didn't do it, and he won't do it anymore. He had no right to put her mother's life in danger. It was all for the best. They needed to break up and try to forget each other. Saturday. "Are you sure you're not going with him?" Hazel looked at her daughter as if trying to scan her through. "Sure, Mom. I'm going to a cottage with my friends," Sheila replied, packing the things she would need for the 2-day trip. "Well, all right. Call me when you arrive," Hazel kissed her daughter on the cheek. "Of course. Don't worry and don't stress. I'll be back on Sunday evening."
Bye.
Hazel let out a relieved sigh. Sheila was clearly going through a lot, Hazel could see it, and her heart ached for her daughter. But the fact that she was going away for the weekend was good. A change of scenery, good company, all of it would help her get distracted. And of all the people in this big city, she had to meet Russell's offspring. Hazel thought. It's simply cursed to come across that damned family after so many years. Hazel hated them even more now because her daughter was suffering because of them. Hazel had heard Sheila sob into her pillow at night and literally prayed for God to send her daughter a good and worthy man from a normal family. Sheila couldn't distract herself. Thoughts of Ralph didn't leave her for a moment, and she already regretted going to the party. She didn't want to see anyone, she was tired of forcing a smile and engaging in conversations with all these people who were here. "And that guy seems to like you. He's been looking at you all day," her friend remarked. "I've already found out everything about him. He's from a decent family. A lawyer. He works with his father, they have their own law firm." "Let's not talk about matchmaking," Sheila waved it off. "Well, you're being sour as a lemon sitting there. Life goes on. One left, another one comes. And if you love Ralph, why not reconcile with him and stop suffering?" "We can't reconcile. I think I'll go home." "I don't want to stay overnight," Sheila replied, trying not to look in the direction where that guy was sitting. She noticed that he kept looking at her, and he was sitting at the table next to her, trying to initiate a conversation. But Sheila didn't have much desire to continue that acquaintance. "Are you sure? Maybe you'll stay after all," her friend asked. "No. I didn't drink alcohol, so I'll go," Sheila said. Sheila approached the host of the house, then said, "Goodbye," to everyone else, and the guy tagged along to see her off to the car. "It's a shame you're leaving already," he said. "Give me your phone number. Let's meet tomorrow evening in the city. Let's go somewhere." "Sorry, but no. It was nice talking to you. Sheila forced a smile and got into her car. No one interested her right now. Why did you come back? Hazel asked, surprised by her daughter's appearance. I want to be alone. How are you feeling? Sheila asked. I'm fine. We'll go on vacation soon, you'll relax. Sheila, do you think I don't worry about you? I worry a lot. Believe me, everything will be fine for you. This love of yours will pass. That offspring of that despicable man is not worthy of you. Hazel sympathetically looked at her daughter. But what if it doesn't pass, Mom? Sheila raised her voice slightly. You will meet someone else, someone worthy, and it will pass. Remember my words. Sheila didn't respond and went to her room. She took her phone and opened one of their photos with Ralph. They looked happy, smiling. Will it all end like this? Will they no longer take walks, holding hands and carelessly chatting about everything in the world? She would never look into his eyes again, never nestle against his chest, never feel the touch of his lips on hers. Sheila put the phone aside and covered her head with her hands. She desperately wanted to call him right now, see him, throw herself into his arms, and say, I love you. Why are you so angry? Mary asked her brother, who had been snapping at everyone for the slightest reason all Sunday. Just leave me alone, kid, he growled at both his sister and his plate, then pushed it away and got up from the table. Ralph, where are you going? What about dinner? His mother looked at her son. I don't have an appetite, he rudely replied and left the kitchen. Russell put down his fork and leaned back on his chair. Will there always be these tantrums now? He looked at his wife, then at his daughter. Mary, you finished eating. Go to your room for now. What happened? What's going on here? She asked. It's our business. Go, as we said, her mother said sternly. The girl left the table and went to her room. He'll calm down. Everything will be fine, Russell said. Listen, maybe I should go to Hazel's, he replied, and his wife simply shrugged. What else? Are you going to grovel at her feet? To humiliate yourself? Don't even think about it, the woman frowned and gave her husband a disapproving look. He'll forget about this, Sheila, and everything will be fine for him. But what if he doesn't? Russell asked. What do you mean, if he doesn't? There will be plenty more Sheilas. That's it. Enough. He did the right thing by breaking up with her. We should introduce him to my friend's niece. She's a good girl, studying at a pedagogical university. I think right now he's not in the mood for that. Now is the time, actually. And don't you dare go to your ex, don't crawl at her feet. It's her fault for everything, she said. I'm actually worried about our son. He's suffering, Russell replied. I worry just as much, and I want happiness for our child. But that girl is not the right match for him, they have no future together. Or do you want him to disown us because of her? No, of course not, Russell sighed and resumed finishing his dinner. Monday. Wow. What a surprise, the friend looked at Sheila, then at the same guy from the party who stood in front of their university, holding a large bouquet of orchids. Unexpected, she replied. Sheila wasn't pleased with this surprise at all. Arthur hurried towards the girls and handed Sheila the flowers. And, of course, at that moment Ralph came out of the institute with 3 of his classmates, engaged in a lively discussion, but stopped when he saw Sheila. His gaze darkened, and an unpleasant smirk appeared on his lips. He quickened his pace, breaking away from his classmates, and rapidly descended the stairs. Sheila returned the bouquet to Arthur. I don't want them. And don't you dare come here or follow me, she said, watching Ralph head towards the bus stop. Without waiting for a response, Sheila quickly ran down the steps, leaving them alone. Is she always like this? The guy asked, watching Sheila. She just broke up with her boyfriend. She's not interested in new relationships right now. I see, Arthur handed the flowers to Sheila's friend. Then these are for you, he said and walked away. Hazel strolled leisurely through one of the shopping centers owned by her close friend's company, sharing what had happened in her family. What a misfortune for Sheila. Tell me about it. As if there are no other guys in the whole city except for his son. Just don't turn around, Hazel, but behind you, Russell is looking at some man in the jewelry store, the friend said, hardly believing her eyes. Despite the years that had passed, she recognized her friend's ex-husband immediately. Hazel choked on her coffee, which she was sipping slowly at that moment, and turned around. Indeed, Russell was right next to them in the jewelry store. As if sensing someone looking at him, he turned his head towards Hazel, and their eyes met. That bastard seems to be coming here, Hazel, without blinking, stared at her ex-husband approaching. Hello, Hazel, he said, approaching the two women, one of whom looked at him with undisguised contempt. And then something happened that he didn't expect at all. Hazel splashed her remaining coffee right in Russell's face. Fortunately for him, it had already cooled down and was lukewarm. People passing by started glancing at them, and Hazel's friend exclaimed, wide-eyed. Don't you dare come near me, and keep your precious son away from my daughter. Let him go miles out of his way to avoid her, she shouted, then took her friend by the arm and hurried away from the shopping center. Well, that was a conversation. Russell took out a disposable tissue from his pocket and started wiping his face. She's crazy, Ralph's mother said as her husband tried to clean the coffee stains off his clothes. The front door swung open, and Ralph entered the apartment. Hi, dear, his mother said to him. Just take a look. She showed her son his father's shirt, which was covered in brown stains. What's this? He asked, not understanding. Well, your dad happened to run into your ex-fiancée's mother today. So that crazy woman splashed coffee in his face. Good thing it wasn't scalding hot. She needs professional help. Her daughter is probably a psychopath too, it's in the genes. Mom, enough. Ralph snapped at his mother. What do you mean, enough? Like mother, like daughter, it must be. Ralph, don't go anywhere on Saturday, my acquaintance is coming over with her niece. She's a nice girl. Ralph interrupted his mother, then dashed out of the apartment as if scalded. His mother chased after him. Stop right there, she shouted. Where do you think you're going in the middle of the night? Ralph didn't wait for the elevator and headed towards the dark staircase. Stay away from me, he replied before quickly descending the stairs. He had spare keys to his cousin's apartment, who was often away on business trips, and he decided to spend the night there. Hazel placed the shopping bags in the hallway and headed to the kitchen, sensing a pleasant aroma. Kenneth was standing by the stove, frying meat in the pan. Hi. I decided to make beef stroganoff, the man turned around and smiled at his wife. Hazel approached him and hugged him. It suddenly struck her today that her husband was the best man and that she was incredibly lucky to have met him. What a fool I am, she thought, how? How could I not realize for so many years that I love this person? It was a different feeling, not as intense and emotional as what she felt for her first husband. But it was still love. Yes, not at first sight, but a more mature love based on respect, care for each other, and mutual support. Kenneth was always there when she needed him. She didn't have to say or ask for anything, he simply did everything himself, as if reading her thoughts. He tolerated her whims and tantrums, shared both joy and sorrow with her. Of course, she loved him. But the memory of the past, of a different feeling, prevented her from realizing it for so long. Kenneth, I love you so much, she whispered softly. I know, he replied, what's with you today? Oh, nothing. Hazel stepped away from her husband and looked at the dish he was cooking. Your beef stroganoff is about to burn, she remarked, and Kenneth immediately started flipping the meat. It's all your fault, he grumbled, and Hazel smiled as she went to the room to unpack her purchases with her daughter. She hadn't forgotten to buy something for her too, just to bring a little joy. Sheila was in the room, lying on the bed, embracing the cat. Sheila, I bought you something, Come, I'll show you, she said. We're going to the seaside soon, so new accessories will come in handy. Mom, I don't need anything. I want to be alone, Sheila replied without looking at her mother. Sweetie, are you going to lie on the bed all the time now? Come on, get up. I bought you such a cool swimsuit, all the guys at the beach will be after you. I don't need a swimsuit, guys, and I don't want to go anywhere. Sheila turned over to the other side. Hazel sighed and sat down next to her daughter. Sheila, this isn't right. This Ralph isn't worth your suffering, she said. Mom, I love him, don't you understand? Sheila bit her lip to hold back tears. I understand. You know, love is a very complicated thing. True love comes with time when two people overcome life's difficulties together, care for each other, and support each other. What has this Ralph done to make you love him so much? And what does he have to do? Either you love a person or you don't. Sheila turned onto her back and looked at her mother. A man is judged by his actions. Today, I accidentally met his father at the mall. It was a pitiful sight. I splashed coffee right in his face, Hazel replied and smirked. You're something, Mom. What I feel for that scumbag is more than hatred. Could that couple raise their son to be a decent man? Sheila, believe me, time will pass, and you won't even remember him. You'll be with someone who truly deserves your love. You don't know Ralph at all, Sheila sighed. I know his father. That's enough. Come on, let's get up. I bought a bunch of things, let's go try them on. And your dad is cooking beef stroganoff, so we'll have dinner soon. Let's open a bottle of wine, have a little for the upcoming vacation, and then indulge in some dessert. I bought your favorites. Sheila smiled faintly. Okay, let's go see what you bought, she said and slowly got up from the bed. Ralph arrived at his cousin's apartment. It was quiet here, without those who had derailed his life. But it didn't make things easier for him. What he saw today near the university drove him crazy. Jealousy. Did he have any right to feel that way? But Sheila had quickly found an admirer. Even if she didn't accept his flowers today. Ralph saw that Sheila didn't take the bouquet and hurried away from that unknown guy. But everything could change. She was a beautiful and free girl, but the thought of Sheila being with someone else tore his heart apart. Ralph took out his phone and opened the messenger. I can't live without you, he wrote to Sheila and, after some thought, sent the message. It wasn't until the morning that Sheila saw Ralph's message because when she went to bed, she discovered that her phone was completely dead. Her heart skipped a beat, her thoughts were tangled. How she wished she could forget everything and rush to him. But she couldn't act that way because her mother's health was more important. Could she do that to her own family, the people who gave her life? Sheila understood in her mind that a relationship and a shared future with Ralph were impossible, but her heart couldn't come to terms with it. Sheila fiddled with her phone in her hands, unsure of how to respond. Her mother knocked on the door, and she set the phone aside. Only when she sat in the car did she muster the courage to call Ralph. Hi. Hey. Ralph, Sheila, can you come over? I'm at my brother's apartment, Ralph interrupted. Okay. I'll come right now, she replied. They often spent time together at Ralph's cousin's apartment. Sheila started the car, not knowing what they would talk about, but unable to resist the desire to see him. As soon as Sheila stepped inside, Ralph embraced her and began kissing her. Ignoring the voice of reason, she surrendered to the impulse and disconnected from the harsh reality, losing herself in him and her own feelings. I love you, he whispered softly, gently stroking her hair. I love you too, Sheila replied. But we can't be together. It will devastate my mom. And I'll never be able to have a good relationship with your parents, knowing about the past that connects them with my mom. We can't just erase our parents from our lives, she added, looking into his eyes, holding back tears. I know, and I understand all of that, he said sadly. I made a promise to my mom that I would end things with you. Maybe I can try talking to her, he suggested. She won't listen. What if she gets sick again if she sees you? Yesterday, she accidentally ran into your dad and she threw coffee in his face. She'll never make peace with him or your mom. And I can understand her perspective, Sheila explained. I understand too. Are we really just going to break up and that's it? Sheila, I can't live without you. I'm going insane. I'm starting to hate my own parents. We don't have any other choice. If we don't break up, my mom simply won't survive it. Sheila slipped out of Ralph's embrace and began getting dressed. I still have time for my last class. Are you going to the university? She asked. No, not today. Ralph looked at Sheila, a faint sad smile touching the corners of his lips. He looked at her as if he wanted to remember her just as she was now. So, this was our last meeting? Yes, she replied, averting her gaze. Sheila regretted coming, as it now hurt her even more and it was even harder to let go of him. Her heart ached, but she had to leave, to force herself and leave him forever. Sheila quickly got dressed, and Ralph followed her into the hallway to close the door. Will you kiss me?
Goodbye.
He asked, and with tears in her eyes, she threw herself into his arms, sealing their lips with a kiss, and then she rushed out of the apartment. She no longer saw the point in going to the institute, and lectures were the last thing on her mind. Tomorrow, early in the morning, she would fly far away, and perhaps there she could come to terms with the inevitable. Maybe there her pain would dull a little. When Sheila entered the hotel where she was supposed to spend 10 days with her parents, she couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the same guy in the lobby, the one she had met at the party hosted by their mutual friend. A coincidence? Such coincidences simply don't happen. Someone must have told him where she was going. Arthur got up from his chair and headed towards the reception where Sheila was standing with her parents. Good afternoon, he said, and Sheila, Hazel, and Kenneth turned together in surprise. I'm Arthur, your daughter's friend, he said, causing complete bewilderment in Sheila. What audacity. Now he's even claiming to be a friend. Sheila's mouth dropped open in astonishment. Hello, Arthur. Kenneth shook the young man's hand and looked at his daughter with surprise. Pleased to meet you, Hazel said, bewildered. He's not my friend at all. I've seen him twice in my life, Sheila muttered, giving him a less than pleasant look. Arthur, we want to change and go straight to the beach. Will you join us? Hazel asked, ignoring her daughter. Mom. Sheila uttered in annoyance. With pleasure, Arthur replied. All right, let's meet back here in 15 minutes, Kenneth said, taking their passports and room keys. Sheila, what a pleasant young man. Oh, where are my 20 years? Hazel said and laughed. Mom, you're joking now. Kenneth said, opening their room with Hazel. Just kidding. I already have the best husband in the world. Hazel replied. And did you forget to ask me if I want to be in the company of this Arthur? Sheila was very displeased. Why are you so upset? He won't eat you. Kenneth entered the room while Hazel and Sheila stood by the door. Mom, he's kind of weird. We've only met twice in our lives, and he showed up here. It's not a coincidence, Sheila replied, nervously twirling the key to her room. He's a good guy. That's actually a manly act. Not many people are capable of that nowadays. No one expects you to marry him right away. You don't even know him yet, and you've already called him weird. Talk to him first, and then make conclusions. I definitely like him, Hazel said. You know that I love. Enough talking, Hazel interrupted her daughter. Let's quickly change and go to the beach. She entered her room, while Sheila opened the door to her own room, which was located next to her parents' suite. She didn't feel like going anywhere, especially not interacting with this arrogant Arthur. Sheila's thoughts were all about Ralph, and the pain in her heart didn't go away. She constantly thought about their last meeting, with his face vividly in her mind. Aren't you going to swim? Hazel asked her daughter, as Sheila settled on a sun lounger, covering her face with her hat. No, she replied, you invited this Arthur, so you can talk to him and swim with him. Well, you're missing out. Wow. It's beautiful. Take a dip and have a nice cold beer, Kenneth said, heading towards the sea. If you get tired of sunbathing, come join us, Hazel said to Sheila and then followed her husband. As for Arthur, he didn't say anything. He grabbed his fins and snorkel mask and headed to the sea. Look who I brought, Arthur's voice sounded about half an hour after he left, and Sheila rolled her eyes and made a displeased grimace. Although it was not visible due to the hat that continued to cover her face. I'm not interested in what you brought, Sheila reluctantly removed the hat from her face. Listen, Arthur. Are you even in your right mind? Why did you come here, she asked, conveying through her appearance and tone that his company was unpleasant to her. I'm not one to back down. Ever since I saw you, you're all I can think about, he confessed. Well, think about someone else. Not me. I love someone else, and I always will. So, you don't stand a chance. Then why isn't he here? As far as I know, you two broke up, he remarked. That's none of your business, Sheila replied curtly, looking at the plastic table where something crab-like was slowly crawling in a beautiful shell. She brushed the sea creature off the table and looked at Arthur again. And there's no need for you to bring me any nasty things, she said and covered her face with the hat once again. During dinner, Sheila didn't utter a word. Her parents engaged in pleasant conversations with Arthur, while she could only think about Ralph and her shattered life. The sea, the 5-star hotel they were supposed to stay in for 10 days, and especially the company of this unexpectedly and inconveniently imposed Arthur did not bring her any joy. The next day. Look. Arthur emerged next to Sheila and showed her a large red starfish he had retrieved from the bottom of the sea. Leave me alone, Sheila passed by without even glancing at the starfish or the person holding it in his hand. Have I done something wrong to you that you keep snarling at me, he asked, following Sheila. I don't want to talk to you, she replied, and immediately exclaimed and stepped back when she saw something white and faintly glowing in the water. Wow. Arthur quickly removed an underwater camera from his neck and started taking pictures of this marine creature. Sheila was curious to know what it was. She began to observe, following the creature as it tried to swim away from them with Arthur. Is that a squid? She asked. It's a cuttlefish. Arthur attempted to pick up the marine creature, but it released dark blue ink and swiftly swam away. Impressive, Sheila gasped. Check this out. Arthur started showing her photos that included not only the cuttlefish but also various starfish, different fish, including a small stingray, and crab-like creatures in beautiful shells. Suddenly, Sheila also wanted to observe the underwater life, but she didn't have a mask. Wow, it's beautiful, she said, examining the photos. Would you like to see all of this in person too? Arthur asked. I don't have a mask, Sheila replied. That's solvable. Wait here, I'll be right back, he said and hurried to the shore. There was a tent not far from the beach where they sold a variety of items, including snorkeling masks. While he was away, Sheila swam along the shore, trying to spot something alive in the water. Arthur didn't keep her waiting for long. Soon, he returned and handed Sheila a mask and fins. Where did you get these? She asked. Bought them. They sell everything nearby. Put them on, there's plenty to see, he replied with a smile. Sheila immersed herself in the underwater life of the Caribbean Sea with delight. She managed to momentarily disconnect from her problems and thoughts about Ralph. Colorful fish, starfish, crabs, everything was so vibrant and vivid. Arthur took numerous photographs, and Sheila even happily posed for him. So, how was it? Arthur asked when he and Sheila finally resurfaced after enjoying a good swim. It was great, she replied and walked towards the shore. Arthur followed suit. How was your swim? Hazel asked, sipping her cocktail, as her daughter and her companion returned to their sun loungers. She had a very satisfied look on her face. It was excellent. Sheila answered. Guess what, Mom? I saw a cuttlefish and a stingray. Mother, we should also admire the marine life. Kenneth said, enjoying his cold beer. Can we borrow your masks, guys? Hazel asked, smiling at Arthur. Of course. I'll have to repay Arthur for the mask and fins, Sheila said, settling into the sun lounger. You don't need to repay me anything. Sheila, I'm going to the bar. What can I get you to drink? He asked. Nothing, she replied, and once again, she covered her face with the hat. Why are you being so grumpy? Hazel asked her daughter when Arthur left. He's a nice guy. He hasn't done anything wrong to you, but you treat him like this. He's not just doing things for no reason. He's showing interest in me, Sheila replied. Yes, he's courting you, and he's doing it in a very decent and romantic way. But I don't care. Whatever he does, it's useless anyway. He's wasting his time and energy. Girls, enough. We're on vacation. Stop arguing, Kenneth intervened. And let Mom stop pushing this Arthur on me, Sheila replied. No one is pushing him on you. Mom just wants to say that you're behaving poorly. The person hasn't done anything really bad to you, but you're being grumpy, Hazel defended. I find his company unpleasant, and that's it. I'm not obligated to interact with someone if I don't want to, Sheila asserted. You were swimming together for over an hour, and it didn't seem like his company was that unpleasant to you, Hazel remarked. Mom, leave it. Don't even try. I can see where you're heading. Just know that I will never have anything with this Arthur, Sheila snapped. Never say never. A worthy guy has appeared on the horizon, and she turns away from him, Hazel replied. Arthur is coming back. Enough arguing, Kenneth said, finishing his beer. Arthur placed a glass of freshly squeezed juice and several bottles of water on the table. Sheila, I brought you some juice, he said, settling on a sun lounger next to her. Kenneth, let's go snorkeling. Hazel immediately said. Not that she particularly wanted to do it right now, but she decided it was necessary to leave her daughter alone with Arthur. Let's go. We'll need to buy masks later, Kenneth replied, and Arthur handed them his mask and Sheila's mask, as well as his own fins. It was unbearably hot, and Sheila removed her hat from her face. She took a sip of water and almost finished the bottle before starting on the juice. It was refreshingly cold, invigorating, and very delicious. Maybe we can go for a scooter ride? Arthur suggested to her. Listen, we can certainly ride scooters, swim with fish, sunbathe on the same beach, but there will never be any romantic involvement between us, she replied. Did I ever propose a romantic involvement to you? Arthur asked. We're all on vacation, so let's just relax and enjoy life instead of ruining each other's mood. Well, then, relax on your own, she retorted. Is my company really that unpleasant to you? He asked with sadness in his voice. I understand why you're doing all this, so I want to convey that you're wasting your time and energy on me, she stated. I understand. But can't we simply have a conversation? He asked. And you won't come on to me or flirt with me, she glanced at the young man. I haven't come on to you, nor am I forcing anything. Don't you just want to have a good time? He asked. I don't want anything at all, Sheila replied, once again reminded of Ralph. Stop it. It's so nice here. We should enjoy the moment because there won't be another moment like this. So, what about the scooter? Will you accompany me? He asked. Well, let's go, Sheila said. She managed to distract herself from her sad thoughts while swimming underwater, admiring the marine life. Perhaps riding a scooter would help her stop thinking about her unhappy love, she thought. This time during dinner, Sheila was more agreeable, which pleased Hazel greatly. Just in time, this Arthur appeared, she thought. Sheila, would you like to take a walk after dinner? Arthur asked when they were already preparing to leave the restaurant. I don't want to, she replied, being the first to leave the table. Then everyone dispersed to their rooms. I really like this Arthur. And Sheila is so rude to him. She's just foolish. He's madly in love with her, Hazel told her husband when they were in their room. But Sheila loves someone else, that's why Arthur doesn't interest her, Kenneth replied. You, dear, want her to quickly switch to someone else. I really want her to forget about those two scoundrels and stop suffering. God himself sent her Arthur. So what? Or don't you like him? I like him. But he should be liked by Sheila, not us. And besides, if she has such a strong love with this Ralph, maybe they should be together. We don't have to interact with him and his family in any way. Why ruin the children's lives? Are you serious? Hazel's eyes widened. My dear, have you lost your mind? She'll get over all of this, you'll see. She'll forget about this painful infatuation. Our Sheila will have love, a family, and children, but just not with this Ralph, maybe with Arthur, for example. Hazel, maybe we should let her choose who she wants to be with? Kenneth frowned slightly. I agree. Let her choose, but just not this Ralph. Let's get dressed and go for a walk, Hazel said. You get dressed. I'll get ready quickly, Kenneth replied and went into the bathroom. Sheila refused to go for a walk with her parents, just like with Arthur. But she didn't want to stay in the room either. She decided to go to the beach to be alone with herself and think about how to live on. Sheila sat on the shore and gazed into the distance, indulging in memories of how good it was with Ralph until a cruel fate intervened in their lives. Hello? Arthur sat down next to her, and she looked at him with surprise. Are you following me or something? Sheila asked him. No, I was just walking here and suddenly saw you. A coincidence? The girl smirked. I want to be alone. When you're feeling down, it's better to have someone by your side. Not better. I don't want to see anyone, especially you. If you tell someone everything, it becomes easier. Do you want me to tell you what happened to me? Well, at least I'm willing to listen. Maybe I can help in some way, Arthur replied. You can't help with anything, Sheila said, absent-mindedly digging her feet into the wet sand. It's very difficult to keep everything to yourself. It's difficult when you can't do anything, Sheila said, surprising herself as she started telling Arthur everything. She really needed someone to confide in. A complicated situation, he replied when Sheila finished her story. We had to break up because of our parents, and I feel so bad. I miss him, he's all I think about. I understand. But try to relax and simply enjoy what you have now. This sea, the vacation, the warmth. If Ralph really needs you, he won't disappear, Arthur said. My mother will never accept him, and she has a heart condition. If we say that we've decided to be together against all odds, I'm afraid she just won't survive it. Sheila, whatever happens, your life won't end there. Forget about everything for a while. You know what? Let's go to Caracas tomorrow. Do you want to go together or with your parents? I rented a car. Since we're in Venezuela now, we should see it. You just need to distract yourself and disconnect from your problems, at least for a while. I can't disconnect, Sheila sighed sadly. You were able to when we were snorkeling and riding scooters. I'm offering myself as a friend and organizer of activities that will lift your spirits. A friend? There's no such thing as friendship between a man and a woman. You clearly didn't come here just to offer me friendship, Sheila remarked. Anything is possible if both parties agree. Arthur, I agree to travel around Venezuela, but I want you to have no illusions about our relationship. Besides friendship, nothing else is possible between us, Sheila replied. All right, then tomorrow we'll go to Caracas. Maybe we'll take a little stroll. They sell delicious ice cream nearby. Do you want ice cream? Arthur smiled. I want ice cream, Sheila smiled in response. She truly felt a little better after sharing her troubles with Arthur. As it always happens, the vacation flew by quickly. Sheila sat on the plane, reminiscing about her trip to Venezuela. She was very grateful to Arthur because he managed to distract her from her sad thoughts and enjoy life, even if only for a while. She understood that he had a certain interest in her, but she was completely honest with him and could only offer friendly companionship. "We should do it again," Kenneth said, smiling at his wife. "Yes. We had a great time. Sheila, would you like to go to Venezuela again? Did you enjoy the vacation?" Hazel looked at her daughter. "Yes, Mom, everything was great," Sheila replied. As soon as Sheila crossed the threshold of her apartment and cuddled the cat that the neighbor had taken care of in their absence, she received a message from Arthur. "Hi. Did you make it home? I just boarded the plane," he wrote. Since Arthur had booked the hotel a few days before their departure, their tickets had 2 layovers. "Hi. We're already home. Have a smooth flight and a soft landing," Sheila replied. "Thanks." Sheila went into her room and called her friend. "Hey, there. Have you returned already? How was your vacation?" her friend asked cheerfully. "Why did you blab to Arthur that I was flying to Venezuela?" "He tagged along," Sheila replied in a dissatisfied tone. "No way," her friend gasped. "Sheila, I didn't blab about anything. When you left the party, we were talking about travels. I just mentioned that you were flying to Venezuela and that the hotel name sounded beautiful. I never thought Arthur would go there." Her friend defended herself. "And did you mention the hotel name and the date of departure?" "Yes, but I didn't expect him to buy a trip there." "Sheila, I have news about Ralph." Sheila felt her heart racing faster. "What news?" she asked with anxiety in her voice. "While you were away, he passed all his exams as an external student, defended his thesis, and left yesterday. I don't know exactly where he went, but he got a job in a company where his cousin works, in some branch or another. He left the city." Then, Sheila felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes. So, how was your vacation with Arthur?" her friend asked immediately. "Nothing happened between us, and nothing can happen." "Well, I'll go unpack and rest. I'm tired from the trip." Sheila said goodbye to her friend and, after some thought, called Ralph. A female voice answered, saying that the subscriber's phone was unavailable. Sheila felt unwell from the morning, but she went to the university. Her friend hovered around her all day, urging her to go home and call a doctor. However, Sheila stayed until the end of her classes. When they finally left the institute, they saw Arthur nearby. This time, he didn't have any flowers. "Hi," the man immediately approached the girls, noticing that Sheila didn't look well. "Sheila, are you okay?" he asked. "Not really. I've had a dizzy head since morning," Sheila replied. "I've been trying to get her to go home all day, but she insisted on staying through all the lectures, half dead," her friend said. "Let's go. There's a good medical clinic nearby," Arthur suggested. "No need. I'll go home," Sheila refused. "You're going to drive in this condition?" "Sheila, don't be foolish," her friend said. "I definitely won't drive," Arthur offered Sheila to take his arm and then slowly descended the stairs. Sheila could barely move her feet, feeling everything swirling before her eyes. Arthur helped her into his car and drove her to the private clinic he had mentioned. He explained the situation at the reception, and they were asked to wait for a while. "Feeling any better?" he asked, handing Sheila a glass of water. "No, even worse," she replied. "Just hold on a little longer," he said, looking sympathetically at her. Fortunately, they didn't have to wait long. Soon, Sheila was called into the therapist's office. Arthur waited for her by the reception, watching as she emerged from one office and headed to another, and then to a third. When she returned to him, she had a bewildered look on her face, with tears welling up in her eyes. "What's wrong with you?" Arthur asked anxiously. "Please, let's get out of here," she whispered, staring into space. "Yes, of course. Let me just settle the payment first." He approached the reception to pay for the examination. Then he helped Sheila put on her jacket, but before they could leave the clinic, they were intercepted by the doctor. "Wait. You forgot the ultrasound report," she said, handing Sheila the images. "Thank you," Sheila replied curtly. As she sat in Arthur's car, she covered her face with her hands and burst into tears. Arthur understood everything already and didn't know what to do, how to comfort her. "Don't cry. Everything will be fine. Let's call your Ralph. When Mrs. Hazel finds out that you're expecting a child, she'll come to terms with it and won't deny her grandchild a father," Arthur suggested. He left for another city. "I don't even know which one. His phone is unreachable." "He probably changed his number," Sheila replied, sniffing. Arthur took out a disposable tissue from the glove compartment and gently wiped away her tears. "Well, he didn't fly to another planet, did he? We'll find your Ralph, don't worry," he said with a smile. "My mom will have a heart attack when she finds out who the father of my child is," Sheila said, trying to calm herself down. "Well, we could say that he's the father and that we're getting married, but I know you wouldn't want that," Arthur said with sadness in his voice. "Arthur, I'm not in the mood for jokes right now," Sheila replied. "I'm sorry. Do you want me to take you home?" he asked. "I don't want to go home. Can you take me to Ralph's parents instead?" Sheila said. "As you wish. Let's go. Just give me the exact address." Sheila hesitated for a while before pressing the doorbell, gathering her thoughts. If she tells Ralph's parents about her pregnancy, they might relay the message to him, and perhaps they will have a chance to be together. Ralph's mother widened her eyes and opened her mouth in surprise when she saw Sheila. She was home alone and thought it was Mary who had forgotten her keys and went to the store. "Hello," Sheila said softly. "What are you doing here?" his mother asked rudely. "I really need to talk to you," Sheila replied. "There's nothing to talk about between us. Forget about my son already. He's gone far away, away from you and your crazy mother. Leave and don't come back here. Each of you has your own life. But it's important. I can't reach him. Please give me at least his new phone number," Sheila pleaded. "I won't give you anything. Ralph didn't leave alone, he left with another girl. He has forgotten about you, so forget about him," his mother said. The door slammed shut. Everything was like a haze. Tears streamed down Sheila's cheeks. She slowly walked to the elevator and descended to the ground floor. Arthur immediately got out of the car when he saw her, and she buried her face in his chest and started crying. They stood like that for some time until Arthur managed to calm her down a bit. Embracing Sheila around the waist, he led her back to the car and helped her sit down. And then her phone rang. It was her mother calling. "Mom," Sheila said, sobbing. "Let me answer." Arthur took the phone from Sheila's hand. "Hello, this is Sheila. We stopped by a restaurant, and she went to the restroom. I'll tell her to call you back." "Hello, Arthur." Sheila didn't mention that she would be delayed, so I got worried. But knowing she's with you, I'm completely at ease. Enjoy your time, I won't distract you. Hazel pressed the end call button with a satisfied smile and headed to the kitchen. Life is getting better, she thought, feeling happy for her daughter. "Thank you," Sheila said gratefully. "Maybe we should actually go to the restaurant," he suggested. "I don't want anything," she replied, leaning back in her seat and closing her eyes. "I'm not a doctor, but I know that pregnant women need to eat well." He started the car and pulled away. "Arthur," his mother said he left for another city with another girl, Sheila said hopelessly. "Maybe she's lying." "Did you consider that?" Arthur speculated. "And how do I find out if she's lying or not?" Sheila asked, tracing her finger along the window. "I need to ask your Ralph about it. He has friends, right? Maybe someone knows his new number," he suggested. "Yes. His cousin definitely knows." Sheila took out her phone from her bag and dialed him. Luckily she had the phone number. "Hey, Sheila, how are you?" he answered almost immediately. "Hey. I need to get in touch with Ralph," she said. Sheila, I'm sorry, but there's no need for you to contact him. He has a new life now. I'm sorry, but I won't give you his number, he said. The call ended with a beep. Sheila dialed the number again, but he declined the call. Let's have dinner and think together about how to find your Ralph, Arthur suggested. Hazel greeted her daughter with a satisfied smile on her lips. How was your time with Arthur? She asked. It was fine. Mom, we're just friends, Sheila replied and went to her room. She decided to send Ralph a message on social media, wondering why it didn't occur to her earlier. But luckily, Arthur thought of it, saying that they could find her beloved that way. Sheila logged into her profile, but once again, disappointment struck her. Ralph had deleted his account. Hey, how are you? A message from Arthur came. He deleted his profile on this social network, Sheila replied. Maybe he has another profile somewhere? No. Don't worry. Your Ralph will show up. Good night. Take care of yourself. Good night to you too, Sheila smiled and lay down on the bed. She had never had a friend before, and now Arthur appeared. Thanks to him, she found it much easier to bear everything, and she had hoped that things could still work out in her life, and she and Ralph would be together after all. Sheila didn't believe that Ralph had left with another girl, but it hurt that his mother had treated her so rudely. Surely he would talk to his cousin, and he would pass on that she had called him, and Ralph would call her soon. She just needed to wait a little. He would definitely call. Sheila felt somewhat reassured, despite still feeling the pain of how his mother had treated her. The next day, Sheila came home early and found her mother lying on the couch. A doctor sat next to her, checking her blood pressure. Mom, are you feeling sick again? The girl immediately rushed to Hazel. I'm getting better, she said quietly. Your mother had a bout of tachycardia. I will prescribe treatment, and please make sure she takes all the medications, the doctor replied. Of course, Sheila took the list and immediately called her father. Sheila, why are you bothering your dad? I'm already much better, Hazel said. But you didn't call him? Mom, you should have called both me and Dad when you started feeling unwell, Sheila got angry with her mother. Your mother needs complete rest. No nervous disturbances, the doctor said before leaving. Sheila closed the door behind him and returned to her mother. Mom, what happened? Who upset you? She asked, sitting down on the couch where Hazel was lying. Sheila, please tell me the truth. Are you expecting a child from Ralph, right? Hazel asked quietly, looking intently at her daughter. Sheila paled, as if there was no trace of tan on her face. Mom, please don't get nervous, she said, unable to tell the truth. Answer me, please. Hazel closed her eyes and frowned. Her heart still hurt, though not as much as when she found Sheila's ultrasound report. From Arthur, Sheila herself didn't understand how those words slipped from her lips. How from Arthur? Hazel immediately opened her eyes. Mom, how did you find out that I'm expecting a child? I found your ultrasound report on your desk. I went into your room to dust, and it was lying there, Hazel replied. Sheila put her hand to her head. How could she have forgotten about that report? She scolded herself. Although, she would have had to tell eventually. And what should she do now? She even implicated Arthur. Sheila, is this child definitely from Arthur? You're not deceiving me, are you? Hazel asked, as if suspecting her daughter of lying. Yes, for sure. Mom, please rest, I'll come right back. Sheila went to her room and called Arthur. She told him that she had come home, her mom wasn't feeling well again, and she couldn't tell her the truth, so she thoughtlessly said that her child was from Arthur. Please forgive me. Arthur, I don't even know how it happened. I was afraid my mom would get worse, and I said that. Calm down. I'll come over now. Tell me the apartment number, Arthur replied calmly. And what will you tell her? Sheila asked, with an anxious tone. I'll tell her the child is mine. Sheila, since you told your mother that, let it be that way. Marry me. I promise you won't regret it. Arthur, I don't love you. No. I can't marry you, Sheila replied. I know. But maybe, with time, you'll be able to love me. That's so wrong. Then tell your mother the truth. I can't. I'm afraid she won't handle the truth. Sheila suddenly thought that even if she talked to Ralph, her pregnancy wouldn't change her mother's attitude towards the father of her future child. Arthur truly loves her if he's willing to marry her, knowing she's pregnant with someone else's child. Words can't be taken back. The girl has already said that he's the father of her child. And how can she now say it's not true? Sheila, think about it. I'll do everything to make you happy, Arthur replied. Apartment 46, come over, Sheila ended the call and burst into tears. Mom, Arthur will be arriving soon. We've decided to get married, Hazel said. Hazel closed her eyes and let out a sigh of relief. That's wonderful news, she said. Arthur loves you very much, it's obvious. 3 weeks later. Well, come in. We'll stay here for a while, and I'll start looking for a more spacious place, said Arthur, carrying Sheila's belongings into his one-bedroom apartment. Sheila entered the room slowly, where a large bed stood in the center. I'll sleep in the kitchen, and you can make yourself comfortable here. I won't bother you. I'll go and prepare dinner for us, he went to the kitchen. Sheila wasn't sure if she had made the right decision by agreeing to move in with Arthur, but she was very grateful to him for being willing to sleep in a separate bed and for never making advances towards her during their entire acquaintance. Especially considering that they had been seeing each other every day lately. However, Sheila was not ready for intimacy with him at all, but soon she would become his wife, and she would have to share a bed with him. What have I gotten myself into, thought Sheila, sitting on the bed and holding her head in her hands. Dinner is ready, Arthur said as he entered the room. Sheila, are you feeling all right? He asked with a concerned tone, seeing her lying on the bed, holding a pillow close. I'm feeling a bit lightheaded, she replied. I'll bring dinner here for you, he said and went to the kitchen. Thank you for everything, Arthur. I feel really ashamed of how I've treated you. Sheila truly felt remorseful for how she had been treating him. Well, if I didn't want to, I wouldn't have proposed to you. I understand that you're not ready for a relationship with me, and I won't rush you. Let's eat at least a little. He set up a small table for Sheila with a plate of pasta and boiled chicken leg. Thank you, Sheila smiled and began to eat. I was thinking that maybe for now, I should drive you to the university and pick you up myself, he said while Sheila was eating. But what about your job? She asked. I'll work from home. I'll sort things out with my father, and there won't be a problem. The most important thing is for you and the baby to be okay, Arthur replied, and promise me that you'll eat well, smile more, and not get too nervous. I'll try, Sheila replied. Being around Arthur always brought calmness, and sad thoughts receded. Sheila even felt sorry that she didn't love him, but one can't force the heart, alas. 2 weeks later, Sheila couldn't stop laughing all the way home. She and Arthur had visited his parents' place, where his whole family had gathered. Arthur had an older brother and sister, who already had families and children of their own, and they were all there to meet their brother's fiancé. Sheila was warmly welcomed, and what they told her about Arthur was nothing like the image she had of him. Who would have thought that he was such a wild guy in his childhood? I can't believe you were up to all that mischief, Sheila said, still laughing. Why not? He asked, giving her a smile and enjoying her laughter. Well, you come across as so serious and composed. I've grown up and changed. And what were you like as a child? I was quiet, calm, and obedient, but my mom's personality is also present in me, Sheila replied. And which parent do you resemble more? More like my grandmother. My mom is like a hurricane, capable of sweeping anything away without hesitation. I'm not that impulsive. And my dad is very patient, but sometimes overly emotional. But my paternal grandmother is the calm, quiet one. So, I have both my mom's and dad's character traits. I'm all my father. He was a wild child in his childhood too. By the way, we've arrived. Arthur parked the car and helped Sheila out. Kenneth, do you think Sheila is deceiving us? Is this child really Arthur's? She used to avoid him completely, said they were just friends, and now she's suddenly pregnant with Arthur's baby, Hazel asked her husband while they were settled on the couch, watching a movie. Well, Arthur confirmed it, proposed to her, so it must be his child. Why would both of them lie? Kenneth replied. It's just so strange. She was so in love with Ralph, and now she's pregnant with Arthur's child. Hazel, you surprise me. It happens so often when people break up. What do you mean? What happens? They seek comfort in the arms of others. Seems like that's what happened with Sheila and Arthur. She probably looked for solace, and this is the result. She didn't want to see him in Venezuela because she didn't love him and regretted the relationship. Maybe you're right. I hope that's the case. I just hope everything works out for them, Hazel sighed. Everything will be fine, I hope. I just hope that Ralph won't show up and ruin Sheila and Arthur's life. Have you noticed how happy she's been lately? Everything will be okay with them, and having a child will bring them even closer. Of course, everything will be fine. Let's just watch the movie already. Kenneth embraced his wife, and they continued watching. Oh, Arthur, look, Sheila stopped near the lawn, where she noticed a small dirty kitten in the bushes, making faint sounds hardly resembling meows. Such a tiny baby, all alone. Let's take it with us, she pleaded, looking at Arthur. If we manage to catch it, then let's take it, he replied and started to get into the bushes. The kitten didn't resist at all and soon was sitting in Arthur's arms. Oh my, he's so tiny. Sheila exclaimed. It's better not to touch him for now. He's probably infested with parasites. So, you go home and I'll take this little miracle to the veterinary clinic, Arthur suggested. Okay, Sheila smiled and headed towards the entrance. She had gotten used to living in Arthur's apartment and being around him. Thoughts of Ralph sometimes made her melancholic, though she had been thinking of him less and less. He hadn't shown up in the past 3 weeks. During this time, her cousin hadn't said anything about her phone call. As for his mother, she had no intention of revealing that Sheila had visited her. Sheila smiled again, shifting her thoughts to the memories of their visit and the funny stories from Arthur's childhood. And where is the kitten? She asked when Arthur returned home alone. At the clinic. He'll stay there for a few days until he gets rid of all the parasites. He has fleas, worms, and some tick. Poor thing. They'll take care of him there and call when we can pick him up, Arthur replied, taking off his jacket and throwing it into the washing machine. I felt like the fleas were jumping on me all the way home, he chuckled, making Sheila smile. I'll go take a shower once you're done, Sheila said, waiting for Arthur to come out of the bathroom. After Arthur finished his shower, Sheila went in for hers, and then, as usual, she went to her own queen-sized bed to sleep alone. Suddenly, she thought that it was time for Arthur to move in there too, at least for sleeping. But just for that purpose. She still wasn't ready for more. After a little contemplation, Sheila left the room and went to the kitchen, where Arthur was already disassembling the couch. Arthur, I think maybe you should move into the room. The bed is big enough, and it's uncomfortable for you to sleep on this fold-out kitchen couch, she said. Are you sure? He asked, pausing in his activity and looking attentively at Sheila. I'm just talking about sleeping, the girl blushed slightly. Okay, Arthur folded the couch and went into the bedroom. Arranging themselves on different sides of the bed and covering themselves with different blankets, they turned away from each other and, with wishes of a good night, closed their eyes. Arthur, I forgot to ask, is the kitten a boy or a girl? Sheila broke the silence. She's a girl, he replied. We need to come up with a name. We'll think of one. I also brought a stray cat home in my childhood. My mom was against it, but we still kept him. Now, my mom loves the cat so much that she wouldn't let me take him away. Arthur turned to his other side. Hearing this, Sheila also turned to face him, and before she knew it, she found herself in his embrace. "Sheila, I'm not made of stone," he whispered, looking into her eyes. "Arthur, I..." She hesitated. "Do you still love him?" he asked. Sheila noticed the pain in his gaze and, closing her eyes, lightly kissed Arthur on the lips. She knew he was tormented, that no man would wait for her favor as long as he had. Arthur treated her so well, cared for her, and protected her. He deserved much more than she could offer. In 2 weeks, they would be getting married, and sooner or later, intimacy between them would be inevitable. So what difference did it make, whether it happened now or a little later? He patiently and quietly waited, not showing what was going on in his heart, concealing his pain, trying to erase Ralph from Sheila's mind and heart. Arthur tried to be as gentle as possible, not to scare Sheila away with his ardor and the wild passion burning inside him. But her response was driving him crazy, completely shutting down his thoughts and self-control. Sheila opened her eyes and blushed immediately, remembering what happened during the night. She was lying with her back to Arthur, and his arm was possessively holding her close. Strange and inexplicable feelings overwhelmed her at the moment, and she couldn't understand herself. She didn't love Arthur, treated him as a friend, but she had done so many things with him during the night. Even now, recalling that night, shivers ran down her body, and the touch of his naked skin evoked a certain reaction from her, making her heart beat faster. Suddenly, Sheila remembered Ralph, thoughts of whom had been rare in her mind lately. She felt like a traitor, and she was deeply ashamed of how good she felt with another man, how she desired someone else, whispering his name during the night, completely forgetting the one who had recently lived in her heart. "Good morning," Arthur whispered and kissed Sheila's neck. At that touch, Sheila's heart first skipped a beat and then raced with incredible speed. She turned to face him but couldn't say anything as his lips instantly found hers. "Who goes to the shower first?" Arthur asked when his breathing had calmed down a bit. "You go," Sheila replied, still slightly trembling, as if electrified. "Or maybe we should go together?" Arthur looked at her and gave a mischievous smile. "I don't think I can make it to the bathroom right now," Sheila honestly confessed, blushing slightly. "That's not a problem." Arthur got up from the bed, lifted his future wife in his arms, and carried her to the bathroom. During breakfast, an awkward silence filled the air. Sheila didn't know what to say. Until that night, it had been effortless for her to communicate with Arthur, and they would talk about everything under the sun. Conversations flowed easily no matter what topic they discussed. But now, nothing came to her mind, and all her thoughts were consumed by what had happened between them, not just during the night but also twice in the morning. "What should we do today?" he asked, not paying attention to Sheila's contemplative mood. "I don't know. We need to think about it," she shrugged. "We could take a walk, the weather is fantastic today." Arthur looked out the window, where bright rays of sunlight illuminated everything around, signaling the arrival of spring. "Maybe we can stop by the veterinary clinic and visit my parents?" Sheila suggested. "That sounds like a plan for today." Arthur got up from the table, sealed a kiss on Sheila's lips, and went to the room, whistling some cheerful tune unfamiliar to her. More than 3 years had passed. "Ralph," Sheila's friend called out, hardly believing her eyes when she saw him in the courtyard of the building where she and her husband recently bought an apartment. He stopped. "What brought you here?" she asked, examining him. "You haven't changed at all." "I bought an apartment in the first high-rise building, been living here for 4 days, he replied. "So, we're neighbors now." "I live a little further." "How have you been? You disappeared so suddenly back then." "There were reasons." "How is Sheila?" "She's doing well," she replied, feeling a bit awkward. "Is she working at her father's factory now?" "No, she's not working at the moment. It's not the right time for her." "Ralph, did you get married? Do you have kids?" "No." "Do you have Sheila's phone number?" "I called her old one yesterday, but someone else has it now." "Sure, I do, but the thing is..." The girl hesitated. "Sheila is married." "Oh, I see. How long ago?" "Over 3 years already," Sheila's friend answered. And does she have children? 2. I see. How's her mother? She's always busy with her grandchildren. And how are your parents? How's your sister? They're all fine. Well, I should go. I still have things to take care of. It was nice seeing you.
Goodbye.
Then. We'll see each other again since we're neighbors now. After Ralph entered his house, Sheila's friend immediately called Sheila. Sheila, you won't believe who I just ran into in the courtyard. You might faint. Ralph is back. He has an apartment in the same courtyard as mine. Sheila almost dropped her phone, and her hands trembled. Oh my God, she whispered as long-lost feelings suddenly stirred within her. It seems he's still suffering because of you. He asked about you, Sheila's friend said. And you told him everything? Sheila sat down on a chair and leaned her head against the wall. A sharp pang of guilt struck her heart. Well, I couldn't lie to him. I told him the truth. Sheila, do you still love him? Everything is fine between you and Arthur, right? It's just. These are very unexpected news. How is he? He looked like a knight of a sad tale. His face completely changed when he found out you're married and have 2 kids. He's not married, no kids. No kids. Sheila turned pale. Nobody, except for her and Arthur, knew that Felicia was her daughter. She was a spitting image of Sheila and looked nothing like her father, which is why nobody questioned Felicia's paternity, and doubts about Arthur being her father never arose. Sheila, hello? Are you there? Her friend asked.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm here with the kids alone. Let's talk tomorrow. Sheila ended the call with her friend, but old memories hit her like a tsunami. The rest of the day, Sheila was not herself, and Arthur noticed something was off when he returned from work. Sheila, are you feeling okay? He asked, giving her the usual greeting kiss when he came home. I'm just a bit tired, she smiled weakly. Did the kids wear you out? Arthur walked into the children's room, where their 3-year-old daughter and 1.5-year-old son were playing together with toy trains. As soon as they saw their father, they rushed to him. Daddy, Daddy, they shouted excitedly, and Arthur lifted both of them up, giving each a kiss on the cheek. And I brought something delicious, he said, leaving the room with the kids. Kinder eggs? Lollipops? Ice cream? Sheila guessed. He chuckled. Something equally delicious, but healthier. He put the kids down and took out 2 pineapples and 3 large mangoes from a big bag. Such tasty treats, Sheila said, smiling at the children and her husband.
Ew.
Their daughter made a face. It's not tasty. It's actually very tasty. You'd rather just eat chocolate. Well, if you don't want it, Mommy and I will enjoy it more, he winked at Sheila. Yes, 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 Sheila replied and took the fruits to the kitchen. The kids went back to their room, and Arthur came over to his wife, hugging her. I have a surprise for you, he said in a mysterious tone. And what surprise is that? She asked playfully. First, kiss me, and then I'll tell you, he said, and his request was immediately granted. Now, tell me. Sheila looked into his eyes, trying to guess what he had in mind. We're going on a 2-week trip to Venezuela in 3 weeks, the whole family, and our parents too, he revealed. Wow. Sheila gasped. But who will take care of our furry princess? She asked about their beloved beautiful cat they had taken in as a tiny, dirty, flea-ridden kitten from the streets. My sister will take care of the pets, so they'll be in good hands, Arthur replied. We haven't gone on a trip since our wedding, so it's time for all of us to relax. I've missed the sea, Sheila admitted. Me too, he said. Isn't it time for the kids to have dinner? It is. Wash their hands and come to the kitchen. I'll set the table. All right, Arthur kissed his wife and went to get the kids. Married with 2 children, these words kept swirling in Ralph's mind. So, as soon as he left, she got married. Surely, her mother's help was involved. That's it, that's all the love. He tightly squeezed the mug in his hand, which still held a bit of coffee, and then threw it with all his strength against the wall, shattering it into pieces. He left, hoping that starting a new life would help him forget Sheila, but it didn't work. Even two of his own romances couldn't replace the love he felt for that girl. And now he had decided to return. He had a job, he had an apartment, no financial dependency on his parents, and he hoped that maybe now they could start over with Sheila from a clean slate, especially since his relationship with his parents had become very cold for a long time. He blamed them for everything, unable to forgive them for the role they played in his failed personal life. 2 children, Ralph muttered quietly, but then he thought that it didn't really matter. He was ready to accept Sheila with her children. After all, he was not a monk, though he had not started a family of his own. Ralph found Sheila's page on VK, a Russian social media platform, and sent her a message. "Hi, Sheila. How are you?" Sheila was in the bathroom, and her phone was lying in the kitchen where Arthur sat with his laptop, handling legal cases for new clients. Hearing the notification sound, he thought it was his phone since it was right next to Sheila's. He glanced at the phones. "Hi, Sheila. How are you?" This message flashed on Sheila's phone, and Arthur immediately paled when he noticed the sender's photo. It had been so long, and he hadn't heard from Ralph at all, and now suddenly, he reappeared. It was unsettling. But on the other hand, Arthur had a family with Sheila now, children. Children. What if Sheila decides to tell Ralph that Felicia is his daughter? Arthur let out a heavy sigh and leaned back on his chair. The thought of his little princess finding out she had a different father was terrifying. And Sheila. Despite never hearing the words, "I love you," from her, he felt it without a doubt. They were happy together, they had a wonderful family, everything was good. No, too much time has passed, he pondered. Ralph belongs to the past. There's no need for him to know about our daughter. Felicia is my daughter, and Sheila will remain my wife, he thought resolutely. Arthur, I was thinking, maybe we could go away together this weekend to some cozy little hotel outside the city, Sheila suggested, lying in her husband's arms. They hadn't been alone together for so long, and her mother had been pestering her about it. Maybe because she wanted to spend more time with her grandchildren, or maybe because she genuinely believed that even beloved children needed some time off to enjoy each other's company. What about the kids? Arthur asked, stroking his wife's shoulder. They'll stay with my parents. Mom will be over the moon with happiness. She's already grumbling that she doesn't get to spend enough time with the grandkids. Well then, count me in, Arthur smiled and closed his eyes. His worries eased a bit. He held Sheila closer. Good night, my love. Tomorrow we'll decide where to go, he said. Good night. Sheila replied with a smile, rubbing her cheek against her husband's. My sweeties. Hazel hugged her grandchildren tightly and kissed them on both cheeks. Oh, how much Grandma missed you. She hadn't seen them for 2 weeks because she had been sent to the sanatorium once again, as Kenneth had done twice a year for the past 3 years. Hello, Mom. How are you feeling? Sheila embraced her mother when she finally let go of the grandchildren. I'm tired of this treatment. My heart hasn't been misbehaving for a long time, but your father keeps sending me to get treated, Hazel replied. He cares about you. Was it bad there? Not bad, but I missed you terribly. Grandma, where's Grandpa? Felicia asked as she took off her new boots. At work, my sunshine. It's Friday today. But tomorrow and Sunday, we'll be playing together with him. Felicia, what beautiful boots you have. Are they new? Where did Mom buy such beauty? Hazel said, gently stroking the child's head. Daddy bought them, Felicia replied. What a great dad. Hazel smiled at her daughter. So, you'll leave tomorrow morning? No, today. Arthur will be back from work, and will leave right away, Sheila said, looking at the kids. Listen to Grandma and Grandpa, don't ask for sweets, and don't bother the cat. Mom, please don't give them too many sweets, okay? Didn't you eat tons of candies yourself when you were a child? Hazel laughed and kissed her daughter's cheek. We have everything under control, so you both relax and don't worry about a thing. By the way, why didn't you bring the cat? The cat will be alone for 2 days. Let her have a rest from these rascals. I'll go now. Sheila kissed the children and left her parents' apartment, where she had spent most of her life. Now they lived in a 3-story cottage within the city limits, and she enjoyed living in the house much more. As Sheila sat behind the wheel, she pondered. She had arranged to meet Ralph at a cafe near the institute where they had once studied together. She felt nervous about this meeting, as so much time had passed. Ralph turned his head and saw Sheila. She looked even more beautiful. Unable to take his eyes off her, he stood up from the table where he was waiting for her and smiled. "Hello," he said and helped her take off her coat. "Hello," Sheila replied, suddenly regretting agreeing to meet him. She thought about how unfair she was being to her husband by doing this behind his back. Ralph hadn't changed at all. Sheila suddenly felt like she was transported back to the past when they used to visit this cafe together. She felt the memories of when they were happy, in love, and making plans for a future together. Could she have ever imagined that her life would take such a different turn? And here they were, meeting again after 3 years. Sheila took a seat at the table, and Ralph settled in opposite her, smiling at her intently. "How have you been?" Sheila asked, feeling uncomfortable under his gaze. "Fine. I came back recently. I couldn't start a new life in a different city. And you, I see you're married?" "I saw your photos on social media," he replied. "Yes. Ralph, when I came back from Venezuela, I looked for you. I visited your place, talked to your mom, tried calling your cousin. I wanted to message you on social media, but you disappeared." Sheila sadly smiled, remembering how painful and difficult it was for her back then. She didn't mention what his mother had said, that he had left with another girl, that she was chased away. It didn't matter now. "But you're just justifying yourself now?" he asked. "No. Do I have anything to justify? I just want to know why you didn't get in touch with me back then." "Neither my mom nor my cousin passed any messages to me." Ralph was surprised. "Sheila, you didn't really want to find me. Why? Why were you looking for me when you yourself said it was all over between us?" he said with a hint of sarcasm in his voice. "What was I supposed to do? I decided to take desperate measures and leave far away to forget you. But I didn't forget. If I had known that you were looking for me, I would have rushed back immediately." Ralph placed his hand on top of Sheila's, but she quickly withdrew her hand. "Sheila, even now, despite you being married to someone else and having kids, I still want to be with you. Let's start over," he said. "It's too late," Sheila replied, looking away. "Does that mean you stopped loving me?" Ralph asked with his heart pounding, though he already knew the answer he would receive. "Forgive me," Sheila said and quickly started drinking the juice the waiter brought. "Enough of going along with our parents and living the lives they want for us. Sheila, leave your husband. I have an apartment, I'll take you and the kids with me," Ralph pleaded. Sheila looked into Ralph's eyes and sadly smiled. "Ralph, I loved you very much, I really did. But it all ended back then, and now we each have our own lives," she said quietly. "Tell me honestly, Sheila. Did you stop loving me?" Ralph waited for the answer to his question, although he already suspected what it would be. "Forgive me," Sheila said and quickly started drinking the juice the waiter brought. Sheila never found the courage to tell Ralph about their shared daughter. It's always better to tell the truth, but what good would come from revealing a truth that would cause pain to many people and potentially destroy her family? No, she would never tell Ralph that Felicia is his daughter. It might be wrong, and she would carry this burden on her conscience, but it would preserve her family, the most important and precious thing in her life. Sheila placed an empty glass on the table and rested her hand on top of Ralph's hand. "Ralph, I never knew things would turn out this way. I thought I would love you forever, but now Arthur and our children are the most precious people to me. I'm sorry, but I love my husband, and we are happy together. You will surely find a woman who will make you happy, Sheila said, removing her hand from his and getting up from the table. I must go now. As Sheila arrived home, she noticed her husband's car there. She parked nearby and entered the house. Hey, you're back early. Sheila approached Arthur and placed her hands on his shoulders. Dad sent me home. He said there wasn't much work left for today, and he could handle it on his own. He also sent his regards and told us to have a good rest, Arthur replied with a smile, embracing his wife around the waist. Arthur, there's something I need to tell you. I'm sorry I didn't say it right away. I met with Ralph today, he's back, Sheila said, observing the smile vanish from her husband's face. Did you tell him about Felicia? He asked in a serious tone, looking deeply into his wife's eyes. No. And I'll never tell him. Felicia is our daughter, yours and mine. Arthur, I never told you this before, but I love you so much, a tear rolled down her cheek. Arthur held his wife tighter, and a smile returned to his lips. If only you knew how long I've been waiting to hear those words, he said. Please don't be jealous. I told Ralph that I'm happy with you, that I love you, and my feelings for him belong to the past, Sheila said, raising her head to look into Arthur's eyes. All the time we've been married, I loved you, I just didn't realize it right away, she added. And I fell in love with you head over heels the moment I saw you, Arthur replied, gazing at her with tenderness in his eyes. Oh, Sheila, if you only knew how much I suffered because of you, especially when you talked about Ralph and how much you loved him. But all this time we've been married, I felt that you cared about me, and I was happy. I love you so much and our children, Arthur kissed his wife. Finally, he had heard those 3 important words that, like a balm, warmed his soul and heart, even though he had long felt that Sheila loved him, even without those words. It feels like it was just yesterday here, not 4 years ago, Hazel said to her husband with a smile, watching their grandchildren play with their daughter and son-in-law in the shallow water. Yes, it's beautiful. Relaxing is not hard work, Kenneth replied, sipping his cold beer. I'm so happy for our daughter. I couldn't have wished for a better son-in-law than Arthur, she said. And his parents are such wonderful people. I knew everything would work out, and our girl would find love, family, and happiness, and here it all is. Thank God for that. I'll finish my beer, and maybe we should go see the newlyweds fishing? They've been gone for a while, they must be exploring something interesting there, Kenneth suggested, directing his gaze towards the sea where Arthur's parents were floating, engrossed in exploring the marine life. Let's go, Hazel replied, not taking her eyes off her daughter and her family. How happy she was that everything had worked out so well, and for over the past 3 years, she hadn't thought about her ex-husband and his family even once.
An amazing story, isn't it? Thank you for listening till the end. I sincerely hope that you truly enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate this video. See you in the comments and in new releases.